All right, we're back. We're on page 98 of math analysis, and we're still doing 14 formulas. And actually, the problems we're about to do are basically the same as the ones we've been doing. They just look different, right? So you're going to be given information communicated in like a slightly different way, but it's only slightly different. So here we want to evaluate sine of the inverse cosine of 4/5 minus the inverse sine of negative 5/13. It seems like a very different problem. But would it seem more similar if I said that we were just doing the sine of, remember, inverse cosine of something is an angle. So we're really just doing the sine of A minus B, right? So this should be, I'm going to say, let A equal the cosine inverse of 4/5. And I can draw a triangle based on that. And I know because it's positive, it's got to be from quadrant 1, right? So this will be for A. So cosine. So we get this. And then I'm going to let B equal the inverse sine of negative 5/13. Because it's inverse sine and it's negative, it's got to be quadrant 4. So these are things you have to think about. But you should always be kind of thinking about these. Like the list of things that you should think about every once in a while is extensive. And the more you do it, just like the easier everything will be for you. So what we're finding really is we're trying to find, so we're doing sine of A minus B. So that'll be sine A cosine B minus cosine A sine B. All right, let's see if we can figure these out. So the sine of A is going to be 3/5. And then we'll find the cosine of B. But then the cosine of A is going to be 4/5. And then we'll find the sine of B. All right, so the cosine of B is 12/13. And then the sine of B is negative 5/13. Negative 5/13. So like the question always comes up, like, how do I know what quadrant to draw it in? They're the inverse trig functions, right? You know all about the inverse trig function. It's got to come from a quadrant that the inverse trig function could come from. So like sine being negative doesn't really play into it. It's the inverse sine of a negative is what's really important. That's why it's quadrant 4. It couldn't possibly be quadrant 3 because inverse sine doesn't come from there. And then this, I don't know, what's this? 36 plus 20 over 65. So 56 over 65. So that's how we can do these problems. And then they don't really need to get any more complicated than that. Let's see if we can do this one. They don't need to, but if you look ahead to part C, you'll see I made it more complicated, even though it didn't need to be more complicated. So, you're welcome. That's the kind of thing that I provide. So here, I'm going to skip the let thing. Actually, I don't know if I am going to skip that because I much prefer writing the like A, B thing for the formula. So I'm going to let A be sine inverse of 7/25. So first quadrant, because it's inverse sine, it's positive. 7, 25, 24. And then we'll let B be the tan inverse of negative 8/15. So it's arctan and it's negative. It's got to be quadrant 4. Really, unless it's inverse cosine, you're pretty much always working in 1 and 4. But we know that, right? Because we did all that stuff. So negative 8, 15, and 17. So I don't know if I'm going to want to multiply these by hand, but we'll find out. So we're finding the cosine of A plus B after we do our let thing. So that'll be cosine A, cosine B, minus sine A, sine B. And now let's sub in. So cosine of A, 24/25. So 24/25. We'll find the cosine of B minus the sine of A, and then the sine of B. Sine of A, you can see is 7/25. So this is like a weird way to fill these in. I don't know if I recommend it. Like, I think it's probably better to go back and forth between the two triangles, but for whatever reason, when I'm doing these notes, it's a little easier to do it that way. 15/17. So I definitely don't want to multiply these. what is it? 425 is our denominator. I don't want to. Not doing it. Can't make me. Ooh, that's not a highlighter. Didn't really mess it up, but there to there, negative 8 over 17. So should we use a calculator? Let's. And actually, while we're on the calculator, let's check these, and then maybe I'll cut this video and come back and do the next one. I have a feeling the next one is going to be sort of extensive, so we'll see. So here we go. If I want to do, so these you don't really need to store anything. I'm checking A right now. So it's this minus arc sine of negative 5 over 13. So you get 56 over 65, which is what we got. And then if I do the cosine of the arc sine of 7 over 25, plus the arctan of negative 8 over 15, just press enter. And then what we thought was 24 over 25 times 15 over 17 minus 7 over 25 times negative 8 over 17. 416 over 425. So we got it. And again, you should be trying to check these on your own. You can make up your own problems. Like I think that sticking with Pythagorean triples and dividing through by the hypotenuse is like the way to go. That's how you get the nice answers, as in the nice rational answers where things like combine together well. But that's the basic idea of these. So I'm going to come back in the next video and do this one, because this one looks a lot like the previous page. On the previous page, they were just like long. So I'll see you in the next video where we're going to take on this problem. I don't anticipate any problems. So I will see you there.